Relief for the telecom sector. Sources say Telecom Commission has approved the extension of the timeline for deferred spectrum payment from 10 years to 16 years. Kritika Saxena is here with us and joins us to give us more perspective on that. Kritika, what is the latest in the case?
So, if you remember, we had reported that the Interministerial Group on Telecom had given its recommendation. By the looks of it, most of it has been approved by the Telecom Commission. So, once the IMG had submitted the recommendations, Telecom Commission, remember, had first met earlier this month and had gone through some of the details, and they needed some more time to mull this over. So, by the looks of it, and from what our correspondent Ashmit Kumar has sent, he is currently outside that meeting. The Telecom Commission has approved that extension from 10 years to 16 years. Now, I will get you an exact analysis of how much of a benefit that will bring in. We'll pull those graphics up for you, but a couple of other important points as well. Another recommendation that the Interministerial Group on Telecom had made was to migrate from the PLR regime to MCLR regime. That has been approved. This is likely to bring in a benefit of almost 400 basis points on an annual basis. Now, the issue of shifting the issue of AGR from spectrum trading has been referred to the Law Ministry. This is something that the Telecom Commission has now referred to the Law Ministry on. Again, that is also something that had been recommended by the Interministerial Group on Telecom, and there were some specific recommendations and guidelines to that. There's another point that has been mentioned, that is the NTP guideline principle. Now, this is the first time that the Telecom Commission is talking specifically about the National Telecom Policy. So, with respect to the National Telecom Policy guidelines, they have said, and I'm reading this out, guideline principles include the connectivity for all, protecting consumer interests, privacy and data protection, tech agnostic and innovation friendly, promoting competition, light and future-proof regulations for ease of doing business, ensuring financial stability and growth of sector, promoting design and equipment manufacture in India. So these are the broad guiding principles that they have put forth. So this is the first time that the National Telecom Policy has been brought out and discussed by the Telecom Commission, and that is very important. So these are the broad overviews, and in terms of the details on how exactly that ease of doing business, etc., will come in, I'd reckon that will happen over a period of time. Yes, we have the details. The NTP draft for approval by the Telecom Commission will be in by November 30th. The consultation with telcos will begin in December. The cabinet note will be floated by Jan, and the NTP is going to be finalized by March 2018. So that's a very important point. Let's bring in, we have a guest with us. We have Mr. R.K. Upadhyay with us. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, we've lost him on the line. Okay, there are a couple of other points. Let me just quickly bring out, Ritu, before we get our guests in. The Telecom Commission has also approved building telecom solutions. That's what Ashmit has pointed out. The TRAI has recommended for providing cabling solution during construction. Okay, that is essentially the add-on proposals or approvals that have come in. The Department of Telecom has also written to the Ministry of Urban Development to provide for in-building telecom solutions. Okay, so basically this in-building telecom solution was something to improve the infrastructure. So the IMG, in its recommendation, they had sent out almost a 120-page report. So in that recommendation, they had made, so the three key points were deferment of the timeline for spectrum payments, and that was 10 years to 16 years. That has been approved. That is very important. And we also have the issue of the PLR and MCLR scheme. We have Mr. R.K. Upadhyay with us. Mr. Upadhyay, come in on the point of the spectrum timeline deferment that's been changed from 10 years to 16 years. This is expected to be a huge benefit for the industry. What are your first thoughts?
No, I think it's a positive movement again, because the telcos were lobbying for it, requesting for it since long. And it was one of the points under consideration by IMG, right?
Yes, yes. IMG had recommended this, sir.
Yeah, I mean, and they had recommended it. So, Telecom Commission has approved it. I think it's a forward-looking step, and this will definitely alleviate the problems of telcos vis-a-vis their financial stress. I'm reserving my comment. I'm not going to comment upon the financial distress theory itself and the reasons for that. But then the question which you asked, this particular step is a forward-looking step, and it's okay. It's good.
Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, the National Telecom Policy, I'll talk about the approvals as well in a bit, but the National Telecom Policy timeline has come in. So let me just read that out for you. The draft policy is likely by November 30th. The consultation will begin then. And by March 2018 that has come out. There have been some broad guidelines that have been put forth in terms of ease of doing business, etc. What do you make of the fact that now the National Telecom Policy has at least taken one step forward, and March 2018 it may seem like
No, this is really, I mean, excellent. This is very good step. Almost, all the existing as well as the players intending to invest in India in the telecom sector, they want clarity on the policy issues. The last telecom policy, NTP, new telecom policy was brought, and it's quite some time that new policy was due. And now these clear-cut timelines being prescribed by Telecom Commission is a very positive move. In fact, let me tell you that consultations have already begun under one of the very senior officers of DOT. Quite a good number of consultations have already happened. And I feel that, Telecom Commission...
But sir, as far as the broad guidelines in terms of the aspirational guidelines rather have been discussed, and that's what Rashmit has sent to us. But what needs to be the key principles that the National Telecom Policy needs to look at? Because we're still not clear on what the specifications need to be or what areas it needs to cover.
See, I mean, again, the guiding principle of any telecom policy in India, even as it was before, more so even today, more so today after this Digital India program, etc., has to be based on three guiding pillars or principles. That is affordability, right? What we call AAA, affordability, accessibility, and availability. So, you see, the challenge currently is the low penetration of broadband in the country. So any policy has to prescribe the formula by which are the steps which must be taken to increase the penetration of internet broadband in the country. Because with the digital economy being in place, with the Digital India, where digital infrastructure has to be provided to the citizens as utility, it is necessary that penetration of broadband is increased tremendously.
Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, just hang in on the line. I want to take this point forward. Ritu, there's some important news coming in. The Bombay High Court has rejected the ad interim relief to Airtel and Idea. We have our correspondent Yash Jain with us. Yash, on what grounds has the rejection come in? And take us through what was argued in the court today by the TRAI, by Airtel, Vodafone as well as RelJio.
Well, clearly the big news coming from the IUC or the interconnect usage charges case at Bombay High Court is that the court has refused to grant any sort of interim relief to Idea Cellular or Bharti Airtel on this particular case. Remember, both telecom players had approached Bombay High Court challenging TRAI's order where it had suggested a cut in the IUC charges to 6 paise from the current 14 paise. Of course, both telecom operators pressed for an interim relief, saying that till the time the hearing in the case goes on and there is any conclusion, there should be a stay which should be brought on this particular order. TRAI here said that a stay does not really make sense in this particular case because there will be an equilibrium which will be maintained as far as the payments and the receivables of these telecom operators is concerned. If they are paying 6 paise as IUC charges, they will also receive 6 paise as IUC charges. So there won't be any damage or any sort of incremental impact which will come on their balance sheet. They also said, in fact, Reliance Jio was also allowed to participate in this argument as an intervener, and it said that the charges which these telecom operators currently incur as far as putting up the infrastructure for the incoming calls is concerned is 6 paise, not 14 paise. TRAI here said that in October it will just be that the billing cycle will start, as a result of which it is very important that there shouldn't be any sort of stay, but the settlement of the interconnect charges will only happen in November.
Yes, if I could interrupt you, just one clarification. Bombay High Court has issued a notice for detailed hearing also post vacation. So I want to understand what options do Airtel and Idea have now. Is this the end of the road, or is this just rejection of that interim relief that was sought, and now after a detailed hearing they can take a call next?
So, of course, there hasn't been any interim relief which has been granted, but the court has also mentioned that after the vacation ends and the hearing resumes, there will be a detailed argument from all three parties, which is Reliance Jio, TRAI, Idea and Bharti Airtel, on how this case can be taken forward. So, certainly not the end of the road for these two
so just to clarify,
after
So just to clarify, Yash, after the detailed hearing, if at all there is merit in the case, they could then take it forward as well. Is that what the judge has said?
Of course, the court will weigh the merits which will come from the arguments from both parties here, and accordingly it will take a decision. So there's no final decision, but of course, at the moment, no temporary relief has been granted to these two companies.
Okay, we will get a few lawyers as well for reactions to understand exactly how strong Airtel and Idea's case would be, because if there has been a rejection of that interim relief, the fact is then October onwards that IUC just kick in. We still have Mr. Upadhyay with us. Mr. Upadhyay, let me ask you about this move as well. We'll get back to the discussion on the Telecom Commission move, but do you think that this looks like a negative for the incumbents?
No. There's no question of negative or positive. So frankly speaking, this IUC order was not at all negative to anybody. This was what was required, and regulator's order is very much keeping in line with the times, with the technology regime in which we are currently. So therefore, this particular case, incumbents are well within their rights to go to seek legal remedy to protect their financial interest as they view it. But in my personal opinion, I've said before also that reduction in IUC.
But Mr. Upadhyay, I know you can't give a legal perspective here, but yes. The fact that there has been that interim relief that has been rejected, interim relief for Airtel and Vodafone that's been rejected, do you believe that then the legal standing that they have gets diluted?
No, not exactly. But at the same time, Honorable Court has not seen any merit in their case that it's of so urgent nature that interim relief should be granted. Else, irrevocable injury will happen to their interest. So that's what it means. The court has not found any merit in this particular argument that if the tariff order comes, IUC order comes in force from 1st of October, it will harm them irrevocably. That's what it means. The court didn't feel that, agree to the argument that it will harm them irrevocably. See, it's again, IUC is a net of payment. So whatever calls are terminating in operator X, from operator Y pays to operator X. In the same fashion, whatever calls originate in operator X network and terminate in Y network, he pays, and vice versa. So it's a question of netting. So there is no irrevocable loss, in my opinion, as well.
Okay. The other point, as far as the Telecom Commission's points were concerned, Mr. Upadhyay, that I wanted to ask you was the AGR getting referred to the Law Ministry. What is the reason for that? Why has Telecom Commission not taken a decision as far as the issue of AGR is concerned?
No, what was the issue? I really do not know what was the issue of AGR before consideration of IMG and Internal Telecom Commission. But the AGR issue is under consideration of Supreme Court.
Yeah. But then,
already.
Okay, so essentially you are saying that that's the reason why they have referred it to the Law Ministry to take a legal standing on the matter, and then they can take a view. Is that the case?
Perhaps, because the case is already before Supreme Court.
Okay. As far as the point on migration from the PLR regime to MCLR regime is concerned, sir, that is also expected to bring in, I'm still trying to bring out the exact numbers. Mr. Upadhyay, just hang in there. We also have Ashmit with us. Ashmit, you were at that meeting. It's some very important announcements coming in. Just point by point, take us to what has been clear and what has not.
Right, as you pointed out, three, four takeaways to watch out for. First up, of course, being the relief being granted by the IMG. Now, as far as IMG is concerned, the interministerial group had made essentially two recommendations. The first was to extend the deferred payment schedule to 16 years, and the second one was to shift the interest regime from PLR to MCLR regime. Now, what we have seen is minor tweaking in that. As far as the Telecom Commission is concerned, it has approved the extension of the deferred payment schedule to 16 years. But as far as the interest regime is concerned,
okay, we lost
PLR to MCLR.
Okay,
400 basis points. So that's something we need to watch out for. That's a key distinction that the Telecom Commission has made from the recommendations of the IMG. That's part one. The second thing to watch out for is that as far as the issue of AGR is concerned on spectrum trading, that now has been referred to the Law Ministry. The Law Ministry will come back with its opinion, and only then will the Telecom Commission formalize an opinion, formalize a position as far as AGR is concerned on spectrum trading. That's the second takeaway. The third takeaway, importantly, is with respect to the national telecom policy groups in operation. What's happened is
Okay, Ashmit, we have you on a bad line. Very quickly, if you can just add the point as far as the national telecom policy is concerned, because this is the first step towards the NTP timeline, when it's likely to come out, the NTP perhaps seeing the light of day. Any more details as to what we can expect in terms of guidelines within the NTP? March 2018 from your lines is what I understand is the timeline that they've hinted at.
To watch out for would be November 30th. That's when the draft national telecom policy will be approved, will be served before the Telecom Commission. That's the first day. That's the first time where we will get an outlook as to what the telecom policy is looking at. Subsequent to that, the Telecom Commission is looking to finalize, the DOT is looking, I beg your pardon, to finalize the NTP by as early as March 2018. As far as what we can expect, well, the contours are yet being worked out, but the frame of reference have been finalized. The guiding principles, as they call it, have been finalized. The guiding principles are...
Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, coming on the points that Ashmit was making as far as the national telecom policy is concerned, some guiding principles have, as we discussed, already been introduced. But does March 2018 seem like a realistic timeline to you, or do you expect that the consultation process, they've given a month's time, sir, for consultation process? Typically, I would expect the telecom players would need more.
I think it's a quite realistic. It is possible to be done. But at the same time, I must add that when we are trying to bring a new policy, all possible avenues of consultation must be exhausted, and enough for consultancy. So therefore, when the policy comes, we do not have to modify it or revise it again, or we have to wait till the next policy comes for certain important issues. Therefore, consultation from all the stakeholders is very essential. DOT has already taken steps in this direction. Some consultations have happened, but they have been very broad. Now I believe focused consultations will take place. And so coming back to this question of whether timelines are realistic or not, I mean, it's quite realistic. It's possible to be done.
Okay, Ritu and Mr. Upadhyay, the point that I was making on exact impact, we had done the analysis and we had been able to get the amount that IMG had tabulated on how much of reform or how much of liquidity it will bring into the system. So as far as the deferred spectrum payment increase is concerned, they had referred 8 years to 16 years. That's been cleared. That is likely to increase telecom cash flows by 55,000 crore rupees. So that's point number one. Interest payment on deferred payments was one of the points that IMG has referred to be cut from PLR, which was 12%, to MCLR, which is 18%. It's now come down to MCLR. So that shift to MCLR from PLR is likely to see cash flow benefits of 20,000 crore rupees. So that's 75,000 crore rupees in just these two moves. We have Sanjay Kapoor with us. Mr. Kapoor, we've been talking about the likely recommendations of IMG. At least two have been cleared by the Telecom Commission. Your first thoughts, sir?
Look, industry is at a very precarious position where any amount of cash that can be injected back into competing in the market and to up the consumer experience should be a welcome move. And I think from that perspective, whatever additional cash they're getting in the short run by way of these two reliefs given by the government should be a welcome move. But, is this going to sort out the woes of the industry, and is it going to get them out of the economic crisis that they are facing and make them viable? I'm not too sure of that. I think there's lots more to be done. Government needs to consider very seriously.
But Mr. Kapoor, do you think that clearing these 2 points is just the first step and more steps would be taken over a period of time?
Well, I would hope so. Because I just said that this is not going to be enough to bail the industry out of the crisis that they are in, and more will be required. So I just hope that this will be followed by AGR's redefinition, which goes more in the favor of the operators, that the rate for AGR comes down, that SUC really is brought down to administrative charge recovery, because the industry has already paid a market-discovered price for the spectrum, which we all believe is probably the highest in the world. And that is not posing the Indian business case to be viable on a continual basis. So I think given all this, there's lots more to be done. And then if the consolidation of the industry is now on the cards, the industry can only benefit by removing caps on spectrum trading, on the spectrum that anybody can amass, and make it more easy for the industry to sustain themselves in an oligopolistic structure that the industry is finally migrating to.
Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, just hold the line. We also have Mahesh Uppal joining in. A very quick clarification before I go across to Mr. Uppal. The Telecom Commission has approved the PLR to MCLR plus 400 basis points. So the relief of 20,000 crore rupees that we were estimating would not hold, since it's MCLR plus 400 basis points, not MCLR directly. So that's an important clarification coming in. Mr. Uppal, come in on these 2 points. The fact that the deferred payment has been, the recommendation has been approved rather from 10 to 16 years. So that is going to be implemented. The Telecom Commission has also approved PLR to MCLR plus 400 basis points. How much of a relief do you think this will bring in for telcos? And do you expect this to be the first step?
I'm sure this is very welcome. I do not believe that this is sufficient for the operators to feel secure or to feel comfortable with the current commercial environment. So yes, this will be a relief, but not sufficient in my opinion. The IUC's decision certainly, though expected, would disappoint them, because it is something that will affect their commercials in a very significant way. And it was unlikely for the courts to courts historically do not go into the merits of decisions taken by regulatory bodies or specialist bodies. They are more focused on process. And so it was expected that the court would not, a priori at least, take a view against the TRAI. So that the case will continue, of course, would give the operators some relief, but I am quite sure that they hope against hope.
Mr. Uppal, do you believe that with the Bombay High Court rejecting the interim relief, do you believe that the legal standing that incumbents will have doesn't hold now?
No, I don't think so, because I suspect that this is obviously a decision or a direction that the court has given pending a more detailed hearing. So no, I don't see this as a view of the court on the merits of the case. But certainly, as I mentioned earlier, in such situations, courts are rarely willing to give stay orders against regulatory decisions.
Mr. Kapoor, same question to you. Do you believe that Airtel and Idea still have a case to take this forward once a detailed hearing does come in?
Well, I have no doubt that this is not the end of the legal recourse that the incumbent operators would opt for. They would be advised by the best legal brains in the country, and they will take whatever it takes to represent their case and their unhappiness with the IUC charges. However, I do believe that they must be also preparing for, an assumption that if this continues and they don't get a stay, then what is it that they need to do? And there are many technology calls to be taken and commercial calls to be taken to be competitive and to carry on with the business that they have in hand. So I guess both those things will go on, and you may not have seen the end of the legal moves that they would like to make to protect their turf.
But, you know, from a legal perspective, the fact that an interim stay has been rejected, Mr. Kapoor, would you reckon that at least for an initial perspective, that could be a setback for the incumbents who will now have to pay, who will now have to scrap that IUC point starting October?
Oh, absolutely. If there is no stay, then the business continues the way it is. And from 1st of October, you get 6 paisa instead of 14 paisa that you were getting earlier. So this is the new normal and reality that all of them will have to face and will have to readjust their business models and business cases based on the new reality of 6 paisa till any such stay comes into force, which stops it from being 6 paisa. So I think the new reality is staring at everybody's face, and that's what we have to adjust ourselves to.
Okay, we also have Mr. RSP Sinha joining in, the former MD of MTNL. I request Mr. Uppal, Mr. Kapoor and Mr. Upadhyay also to hold the line. Mr. Sinha, your first thought, we have two stories right now. One is Telecom Commission clearing some points as far as the IMG recommendations is concerned. Some relief, not much for the telecom sector, and also the Bombay High Court rejecting the interim stay. I want to ask you about the Bombay High Court rejection of the interim stay that was sought by Airtel and Vodafone. To your minds, is this a setback for incumbents?
What I can say, I tell you, in fact, this situation I have myself faced. When in MTNL as CMD, we had filed a case against the reduction of the interconnect issues charges, the IUC charges, and that time also we lost the case. So whatever, once TRAI has taken a decision, it is a well-considered decision, and therefore for any operator to tell it should not be implemented, it becomes very difficult. Whatever the arguments are there, it is always in the favor of the consumer because it leads to the reduction in prices of the telephone for each consumer. So therefore I feel okay, it may be setback because of their other problems. But as far as the law is concerned, it is very clear. TRAI, whatever decision they have taken, it is a well-considered decision in the favor of consumers.
All right, Mr. Sinha, Mr. Uppal, Mr. Kapoor and Mr. Upadhyay and Kritika, thank you all very much for joining in. But